Go.
Okay. So I'm only going to share the screen for a couple of moments, by the way, and then from there we'll move on.
Yeah, is my view here okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Hey,
Looking
okay, good.
So welcome, everybody. We want to extend Connie and I, on behalf of Wellness Innovate, a warm welcome to each and every one of you who have joined us here today. We know several of you are on Zoom webinar, and many of you are also watching on Facebook Live. And we are really excited to have with us, as you can see on the screen today, Myron Feser, and he is the head of business banking for ATB Financial. And for those of you who might be tuning in who may not be Albertan, you know, ATB is a well-known entity here, Alberta Treasury branches, and of course they are sort of a provincially owned or is sort of led, well, not managed, but sort of inspired bank. And, you know, one of the things about ATB, and I know myself, countless entrepreneurs, small businesses, medium businesses who have been helped by ATB. They've taken a great approach towards particularly entrepreneurs and spurring local innovation and talent. And we're grateful today that we have Myron, who is the head of business banking. And, you know, we have been, obviously, in our province anyways, and frankly, in many provinces across Canada, starting the process of reopening the economy. You know, I don't think it was ever completely closed, but for many, many people, it sure felt like it, you know, where they weren't able to go to work, they weren't able to run their restaurant, they weren't able to operate their hair salon. And, you know, even though there was this sort of physical health imperative, there's no doubt that these actions had a massive, massive impact on people's sort of personal and business finances. And, you know, all of that really does then end up hitting us at the level of mental health. And so, you know, Connie and I with Wellness Innovate, that's kind of what we do. We focus on workplace mental health. You know, we know that the area of expertise for most businesses is their business. Mental health isn't necessarily what they do. And so we've been running these webinars, and today, so excited to have Myron with us, and we think he's going to have some unique insights into what's happening. So I'll just turn over to Connie to give sort of Myron a formal introduction, and I can't wait to hear what he's got to say today.
Yeah, we're very, very excited to have you, Myron. Myron has been with ATB for over 18 years and has held a variety of leadership positions, such as manager, business, financial services, the district general manager, managing director of business and agricultural sales, and most recently, the vice president, customer experience and sales. And he has extensive banking knowledge. He loves working with business leaders and his team members. Absolutely passionate about engagement and the exceptional customer experiences that are created by his team members. Sounds like a real team player there, Myron. And we're so excited to hear from you personally that you are willing to share some personal stories and then some of your heart behind why you care about mental health. So welcome, Myron. Feel free to share with us.
Thank you. Hey, Connie, thank you very much for allowing me to be here today. I'll start off by saying I'm a lot more comfortable talking about banking. As you can tell from my career, you know, I've been in the industry for 19 years. So today, actually, I'm going to talk about mental health, and I'm going to share a personal story as well. And the personal story sometimes gets emotional for me. So if we have an awkward pause, I just ask for your patience to allow me to get through it. So with having said that, maybe I'll just start. So thank you, distinguished guests, fellow business leaders, and everyone who took the time today to join in the conversation about workplace mental health. I have to tell you right off the top that I'm here, but I've got to say, I feel a bit out of my league. I'm the Vice President of Business at ATB Financial, not the Chief Medical Officer or the Chief Wellness Officer, and I don't pretend that I have the answers when it comes to the best way to approach the issue of mental health, mental wellness, and mental illness in the workplace. I will even admit to you that I suspect that I get in the way every now and then. I'm originally from Macklin, Saskatchewan, and I have the virtue of hard work and self-reliance branded on me like many Albertans do. That view of the world is a strength, but sometimes it's a shortcoming. I've been blessed. Never myself have had to deal with depression or mental health challenges. Frankly, my reaction to the topic has been to distance myself or bring a get over it approach. My attitude has been a little dismissive, approaching life's obstacles with a pick yourself up, dust yourself off, or get back in the fight type of attitude. So I do not have the answers, but I do have a question. And that question, which has taken shape over a career of managing bottom lines, over a lifetime as a husband and as a father, that simple, profoundly important question is this: how are you? Let me tell you a short story about that question, how are you? Started to take shape in my life, in fact, changed my perspective on mental health and gave me a clearer concept of mental illness. I remember the day, the moment, like it was yesterday. It was February 10th, 2013, at about 7 p.m. I walked into my house after coming home from visiting our oldest son in Tri-City, USA. At the time, my son Scott, that's our younger son, was playing junior hockey for our hometown Red Deer Rebels. I was eager to get home and get the hockey update. How was he playing? How was the team? You know, all of that stuff that a hockey dad wants to talk to his son about. That day, I was greeted by seeing my 17-year-old son and a group of his close teammates sobbing in my living room. They had just found out a close friend of theirs had taken his own life. That changed everything for me. Mental health was now real. Their friend Cale was a great boy, great friend, and honestly, the life of the party. I had coached him in hockey and got to know him and his family very well. The next days, weeks, and months were some of the most difficult times in my life. Watching our son work through the emotions of trying to understand and at the same time move on with playing hockey and going to school was something I will never forget. I tried hard to be strong for Scott, his friends, and our family without knowing how it was impacting me until a couple weeks later when I was at a meeting with my boss and a group of ATB executives. Dan, my boss, started the meeting like he always did, by checking in, how are you? Checking in how all of us were doing and feeling. When it came to me, he said, Myron, how are you? That was it. I couldn't speak. My throat was dry, my eyes watered, and the emotion that I very rarely show came out. Right there, in front of the very people that I wanted to see me as a strong executive I was. My eyes watering, at a loss for words, and nowhere to go. Honestly, I panicked. I remember thinking, oh shit, how do I get out of this? I can't talk, my eyes are watering, and everyone is looking right at me. Honestly, I just wanted to run out of that room, but I didn't. I'm the type of guy that hates starting meetings late, loves agendas, staying focused, and getting shit done. I don't like being distracted, and I get frustrated when we get off track. Well, needless to say, that day, I derailed the meeting. After a few minutes, I gathered myself, and slowly I was able to tell the group how I was really feeling. I was lost. I didn't have the answer, and I certainly couldn't fix things. That day, that simple question of how are you is exactly what I needed. It forced me to talk, open up, and share. No one judged, gave me the answers. They just listened and certainly helped me get through it. Even though I know it helps, I still struggle with it. I push things down or even aside, and the suck it up attitude is still in me. Sorry, I lost my... I now understand the power of sincerely asking someone, how are you? Or how are you feeling? Sometime later, I was on an executive training course, and as part of our course, we discussed the power of gratitude. That day, I sent my son a note telling him how proud I was of him. The note wasn't about school or hockey. It was about his ability to face his feelings and really ask for help. The note was about how much I learned from him, watching him overcome the loss of a good friend. The note was about thanking him for teaching his old man about how to better manage his mental health. As a business leader, one of my greatest personal challenges is to spend less time trying to fix and more time trying to deeply understand. I'm still learning. Far later in life than I wish, that one of the most important questions is, how do you feel? This is true whether I'm a leader, husband, parent, son, brother, or just a plain old human being. It's a profound question. It's not, why do you feel this way? It's not, when did you start feeling this way? And it's not, when do you think you'll finally stop feeling this way? All those other questions shoot us into the future or bury us in the past. How do you feel keeps us in the present and keeps us present to the other person. How do you feel doesn't smuggle in the judgment of those other kinds of questions. It is the start of a real conversation. Susan Scott is a psychologist who has given us a need equation. She says the conversation is the relationship, and the relationship is the conversation. In other words, relationships happen as we talk and as we listen in the present. Leaders like me, leaders like us, have the responsibility. Actually, it's a privilege to build. I'm going to list off some adjectives here, so stay with me. We have the responsibility to build an authentic, open, humane capacity to ask and listen and answer that question, how are you? We don't need any more proof that people want to be well physically and mentally, and that they deeply want to contribute and belong. Feeling alone in the dark anywhere, including work, is unacceptable. Some of you may know the great singer Natalie Merchant. She sings a song about that darkness. It's called Like the Weather. It's a reminder the weather out there is real as the weather in here. In the song, she's depressed. She's in bed, it's high noon, and she asks, what a cold and rainy day. Where on earth is the sun hid away? ATB Financial is honored to be part of the mental health conversation. And on behalf of the 80-plus-year-old institution, I want to thank all of you here who have been pioneers in leading the way for others. You have certainly inspired us. Having said that, I can assure you, we are investing in education and action programs to advance a more effective approach to mental wellness. We will be more intentional in asking the question. We will be better at being more present in looking for the signals. We will be better at connecting people with professional help. We will be more open to the conversation. We will be more open to the question. We have much work to do. It perhaps sounds ridiculously obvious and straightforward to say that becoming more open to caring about how our colleagues feel at work is what we should be doing. But it's tricky. Think about it. Someone comes back to work from time away after surgery for fixing a broken leg. Chances are there's a card, maybe a party, some jokes about breaking a leg and so on. Some people will ask to see the x-rays. Some people will ask about how much weight you can put on it and by when. And others will tell a story of a time when they broke their leg. Now, what about when someone comes back from a leave that we know or suspect has to do with mental health? Is it treated the same way? Is a colleague welcomed back with those stories? Will anyone really ask, how are you feeling? Will we tell them we are glad to see them back, that we miss them? But making that reaction part of our culture is vital at ATB. Providing an environment for everyone at ATB, for every team member at ATB to thrive and flourish is our obligation. That is the bottom line. We can fight stigma and misinformation, and as this pandemic has shown us, we are stronger together than alone. Have the conversation. Thank you for listening. Abe, Connie, back to you.
I'm kind of speechless. I feel like you need a standing ovation, Myron. Anyone else? There's a couple of people. Bravo. There's so many thoughts that I had as you were sharing. First of all, I'm so grateful for an executive who is leading this by example. I was just pondering this week about how COVID has been such an opportunity for reset. Mm-hmm. And how we can't go back to business as usual. We have to put human resources back, or humans back in human resources. We have to be willing to not only ask that question of how are you, but be willing to share like you were. And there's so many who could identify with you, Myron, saying, no, I'd rather just push it down. Let's just get down to business. Let's just get work done. I think everyone can relate to you on that. And for you to have been so brave and to share gives everyone else permission. And so I just feel so proud to know that we have an executive in our province who's leading, especially a male, because people expect it from females, but from a male. And I don't mean to bring the male-female thing up, but, I'm just so impressed. And for you to honor that young man by allowing yourself to process, I was talking to an entrepreneur here in Calgary, and she told me that she knows, not personally, but through friends, 6 suicides that have happened in the last 5 weeks due to COVID. Yeah. This is serious.
It is. Yeah, it is. And having that conversation, we're all learning, right? And being open and having the conversation is difficult. But it's what needs to happen. I remember we were sitting at our place in Canmore and I was writing that speech, and I gave it to my wife and she read it and she said, well, you're never going to be able to tell this story because it's real and it's something that we lived through. And quite honestly, it's made me better in so many ways to share the story and better dealing with our staff and our customers, because our customers, we need to spend more time just honestly asking the question and listening, as opposed to thinking as bankers we have all the answers. We can talk about cash flow and the bottom line and different ratios that we utilize all day long, but I really think that we really need to start by listening to the stories and then working through things with our customers.
So this is just such a great part of the conversation, Myron. And again, thank you for, your vulnerability. It's something that, I think collectively we want to honor. In Wellness Innovate, one of the questions we're often asked, and you might be the best person to answer it, is, why should a business, which really has a bottom line, and that's okay in and of itself, but why should a business think about the mental health of its people? Is that really a part of kind of our wheelhouse as businesses? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I just think it's the right thing to do. Just simply as a human being, I can't help but look at my own family when we have these conversations, and really that's what at times brings out the emotion in me, because you think of your own family, and if they were working for a company or somewhere else, how would you want them to be treated? And that's what you want. So then it really inspires me and our company to say, okay, if we think of it that way, how do we want to move forward, right? Because everybody that works for us, everybody that deals for us, and they're somebody's family. And so we really have an obligation and work hard to take that approach. Aside from that, if you just want to look at it from a business standpoint, 1 in 5 people, we all know the stat, right? 1 in 5 people experience or have a connection to mental health. So from a simple business standpoint, if we can help them manage through that, it's not only the right thing to do, but it's better for business. And I could think of countless people in our organization that we've supported and helped and allowed the time, the professional help for them to get through it. And that short period of time has just allowed them to come back, be so much stronger, and contribute to the organization, and then really lead that into the business. So I think those are, from a simple right thing to do, and then from a business standpoint, that's really the why.
Yeah. Take us to that boardroom for a minute, because I think let's break down, like, your boss. You were there, you were in a meeting, you're probably ready to get down to business as usual.
Oh yeah.
And your boss does he do that often? Would he ask that question often?
Yeah, great guy. He's retired now, and I still continue to learn from him when I think back to those days of working with him. But yeah, typically, how are you? We would jump to business, right? And we would jump to the things that were going well on our portfolio, but also the things that were challenging, and what we wanted sometimes from the organization so that we could move our business forward. So that's usually where we went to. But I was usually the guy leading that charge. Like I wanted to, I'm very focused, as I said in that speech. If my meetings start at 9 o'clock, my team knows the meeting's starting right at 9 o'clock. And there's an agenda. There's never a meeting where there's not an agenda. We always have an agenda, and I stick to that agenda. But that day, for some reason, I wasn't expecting what happened, but it just happened. And these were the people that, I wanted to see me as a strong executive that was moving the organization forward. And the real Myron came out that day. And, looking back, I'm glad it did, because it helped me deal with some things and made me stronger, and made me a better leader, and I think probably a better person and everything. So
that's so cool.
That stuff comes out for a reason.
That's so great, Myron. And so let's talk Alberta for a moment. And a lot of our viewers aren't necessarily in Alberta, but I do think that there's a broader sort of relevance, and going back to here, Southern Alberta in particular, but frankly, right across the province, to the floods of 2013. And then, we understand the forest fires in Fort McMurray, and of course, what happened in lots of parts of the province with flooding and other forms of natural disaster. Obviously, we've seen the energy industry go through absolute turmoil and transition. And then we hit COVID-19, right? So what, if you were to talk to a mental health expert, what they would be talking about is chronic post-traumatic stress disorder for people who are running businesses, because we're not just talking about a one-time shock. We're not just talking even 2 or 3 times. We're talking about repeated trauma, blows to people are trying to run a business. And you know these folks. I mean, these aren't folks who have yachts necessarily and homes in Florence, Italy, and in Spain. I mean, a lot of these folks have had to sink their their life savings or borrow from their friends and their in-laws to get something off the ground, including ATB. What are your thoughts about sort of the current state of affairs for business owners and entrepreneurs, and how can we help them? I mean, this conversation alone, I think, is critical. Just the idea of putting this on the table and destigmatizing the fact that, yeah, my business is hurting, but I'm hurting, right? I'm hurting because I have to been working hard to carry the burden. So I'd love to invite you to talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, that's a really big question. And I guess, first of all, I'll acknowledge, the difficult times for sure. All the things that you've mentioned are so real and are impacting the bottom lines of our business customers every single day. Business banking, businesses, small business is in the core of me personally. I grew up as I said, in small town Macklin, Saskatchewan. I have two brothers that at a very young age started a business on their own, mortgaging my dad's house to get the business started. Went through some extremely difficult times, and I was a young teenager at the time, and I got to, I watched them battle through that, and I have so much respect for them as business people. And I didn't know it, but I was learning so much from them as we went through that. The story for them ended very, very well, and I'm happy for them and extremely proud. But at that moment in my teenage life, I knew that I wanted to help businesses. And so the job that I have today, the career that I've had, is just a perfect fit for me. And that's what inspires me every day to lead this business that we have. I don't have all the answers because it's such unprecedented times, what our business community is going through. But I would strongly recommend, don't try to do it alone. I would say rely on family and friends. Rely on the professional team around you, your accountant, your lawyer, your banker for sure, because they will know, the different tools that are available to help you through this time. And what I would value, not so much are the answers and the solutions that they give, but I would value the questions that they ask. And that would always be, when somebody comes to me and just asks me those questions, that's what I value, because it really inspires me to think and find creative solutions. So rely on everybody, the people around you, the professionals around you. I would say plan. Take a look at your supply chain or supply chains now more than ever. Taking a look at those cash flow. Taking a look at cash flow is really important. And then I know that's really hard. That's really hard right now because so much cash flow has been severely disrupted. But sort of map out best case, worst case, and most likely case based on the information that you have, and then relying on the professionals around you to help get through that period of time. And I just can't stress enough, talk to your bank. May it be ATB or another bank, but hopefully you have a strong relationship with your bank. Don't avoid those conversations. I talk to our staff all the time and really encourage them to reach out, pick up the phone and talk to that customer, find out what's going on and open up the conversation, avoiding, the difficult conversations or the problems, certainly in my experience, is not going to help them. So opening that up and having those conversations would be, a few things I would recommend.
That's really, really good and very, very important. I think sometimes we think in a workplace or even in our homes, in our lives, we think that, oh, I'm not a professional. I don't know if I can't help you, maybe let me give you my counselor's phone number. And that person leaves feeling more lonely. My favorite book on depression is Lost Connections by Johann Hari. He's the one who did the TED Talk on the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. And he traveled the world from a sociological lens and really felt like people are depressed and lonely when we refer them away from us, instead of exactly what you're saying, listening to us, being willing to journey with us, that mental health isn't something that we fix. We don't, we might be in PTSD for a while, and instead of labeling it like, oh, being like, no, I'm a human having a human experience, and I'm a human at work, and everyone is feeling this. And how do we lean in? How do we get past the discomfort of bringing up things that are difficult and listening to things that are difficult? And when we do that, we forget how simple that is. We forget what a really huge difference that makes in people's lives, instead of just, oh, you should just talk to so-and-so. That just creates more loneliness and more isolation. And hopefully we're on a new track now.
Yeah. It's, I think, for me, if I can just share, take it for what it's worth, but for me, I need to now more than ever focus on making sure that I'm in a good place. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But I know when I'm in a good place. I know that I'm better, with our customers. I'm better with our staff. And quite honestly, I'm better at home with my family. And over the years, I've learned the things that I need to do to move me into that good place. And if I don't do them, I'm certainly not. I'm not as effective, and it's just not. It's not really who I want to be. And for me, I need to rely on my family. I'm very fortunate. I've got a great family: wife, 2 boys, a daughter-in-law, and as of a week ago, our first grandson. So I rely on them for strength.
Congrats, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Probably more than what they know, but they're really the strength. And so I think that's important for most of us. For me, fitness is critical. Getting out, getting some movement in my life, and just brings back those endorphins. And I've solved more problems and put things in perspective more out for a long run than I have sometimes just sitting in my office trying to grind through different challenges. Food for me is important, but I'm not very good at it. I'll be honest. That's the one weakness that I have. I love bad food, but I try to do my best there. And then for me, some fun is important, and getting some rest. And if I do those things, I think that I'm better for myself, my family, and I'm better at dealing with what life throws at us as a business community.
So, I love how you talked a little bit about your own, sort of self-care practices. I think that's really what you're describing. And, I heard you share a couple of things, from the importance of family. And I guess you could sort of describe that as social connections, along with, the idea of taking care of yourself physically. All of those things feed into mental health at a personal level. What are some of your thoughts about the workplace and some of the things, and I can appreciate your role, so I don't want you to feel like we're asking for an official statement from ATB, but
Yeah.
but really like what are some thoughts that workplaces can do? Because if I'm doing that stuff, like let's say I'm exercising, I've got my family supports and some other natural supports in my life, but then I come into a workplace that perhaps isn't as supportive. I think we can all imagine the outcome. So what can employers do to help people very practically?
Yeah, I think, I've been very fortunate learning from great leaders like Dave Moen and our current CEO, Curtis Stange. And what Curtis will always say is, lead from the front. And what he means by that is, if there's certain things you want from your employees, I think you need to practice it. And so I think it starts with us as leaders and business owners for us to practice the things and try to live the things that are going to help our staff members. If we believe it's healthy and it's good for the company to speak up and be open about mental health, I think we need to practice that, or you need to live that. So our healthcare provider, every new leader that I hire, I ask them, phone our healthcare provider. Even if you think you don't need it, I want you to phone, because you will not only learn, but you'll know what it feels to reach out and talk to them and ask for help. And then you'll be readily, and you'll know how to do that with your staff, right? So lead from the front. If you believe that getting out of your office and going for a walk and doing some of those balanced things are important, I say you should do that, because your employees, your team members are watching what you do, and that's what they're going to do. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's really important for us as leaders to lead from the front, not only when it comes to delivering the business plan that we all have to deliver, but also taking care of ourselves so that we can deliver the business plan.
And I really loved, how you said, I don't know everything. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm listening. It really takes the pressure off of any leader that's listening today to think, oh, well, maybe Myron's just got it all going on. Maybe he just knows what he's doing. And I love that you were very honest. You're just leaning in.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of all it, isn't it? Like just being willing and to listen and to grow. And what are some of the challenges you find with that, with such a large ship? It's one thing to have 10 employees and try to do this, but it's another thing with what you have, 700, I think?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, the challenges, I guess, is, for me to be effective, I need to know and understand the people that I work with, and with the number, it's challenging to connect with all of them on an individual basis on a regular. So that's challenging for me, but I really rely on my leaders to help me with that. And fortunately, I've exceptionally strong leaders that can translate to me as well. That would be probably the most difficult thing is not being able to connect with everybody that you rely on to help our customers. So a big amount of trust needs to be placed, and making sure that you have the right people leading the business is critical, and making sure that they understand the purpose of the organization, and not only that they understand the purpose, but they believe in the deep purpose of the organization, because understanding and believing in what we're trying to accomplish as an organization is what gets us out of bed every morning and inspires us to dig a little deeper, work a little harder, and find those solutions along with our customers. If we don't have that deep purpose, then it's just a job. And what we do and what our business owners do is so much more than just a job. They're providing just tremendous services to all of our communities, contributing to all of our communities across Alberta. So the purpose of all of our businesses is just tremendous, and it's a deep purpose. So, yeah.
Hats off to you, Myron, and again, appreciating your ability to be transparent and vulnerable. We really appreciate that. Quick question, because it often does come up, and even in the chat here. What are you guys seeing around addiction right now? Interesting report came out of Vancouver last week, actually, about how the fact that BC had a number of deaths in 1 month due to overdose in the month of May. Absolute tragedy that has exceeded their complete death total for COVID. And it was sort of like, their incredible chief public health officer, who has done great work, essentially said, hey guys, there's more than just COVID here. We need to have COVID on the dashboard, but in 1 month they had, I think the number was 168 overdose deaths. And so, I mean, on a broad sort of macro level, what are you noticing with respect to addiction, and again, how companies can support people going through that?
Yeah. That one really, Abe, is beyond, my expertise. But I will say it's difficult, and it's really tragic with some of the statistics that are coming out around it. But we all know that addiction and mental health, all of that is connected, and there's serious diseases that we need to get behind and support and help as much as we can. And it I think goes back to understanding and doing what we can to open up those conversations so that we can help before and then after those problems arise as well. So that's a difficult one.
And thanks for that. And I know Connie will pop in with a question here, but for anyone who might be listening, I mean, obviously, Myron is really speaking to the fact that we aren't experts. And so if you're in that place of addiction or wrestling with it, please do reach out. I mean, we think that, at least Connie and I, for sure, that there's more resources today than perhaps ever before, but we still have a long way to go. And the last thing we want is somebody, wrestling with stigma or feeling as if, they're a less than kind of person. As a matter of fact, the opposite. The courage it takes to bring some of those really tough issues to the table is more courage than most people will ever have to show in their lifetime. And so please do reach out, and always reach out to Connie and I, and we will absolutely direct you to the right kind of supports and resources. So thank you for that.
I want to touch on your comment with just creating culture and being the leader, and leaders go first, and it sounds amazing. And I know we're all just with you on that. And there's leaders that are watching and desiring to create culture. And Myron, could you just speak to how the grit that goes into that, because I'm sure as ATB has been so, trying to move to the forefront of making the mental health of your employees a priority. I mean, obviously there's going to be bumps, there's going to be hills to climb, and, you don't turn the Titanic overnight. But what would you say to leaders who are trying to create great culture, but maybe look at what ATB is doing and goes, oh my goodness, well, I could never. Could you speak to the grit that goes behind committing to a vision like that?
Yeah, I think the appropriate thing would be for the roles to be reversed here, because our business owners I just have so much respect for business owners, because you really have the grit. You live it every single day. I think back to my two brothers that started that business, and the grit that they went through, they didn't give up. They really didn't have a choice to give up. They got up every day and went back to it and worked extremely hard, and found a way. So you have the grit. Your business owners, your entrepreneurs, the respect that you have in the community as business owners is tremendous, and it's well deserved, because it takes a gritty, special person to do what you do every single day. I would say, share your purpose with your employees. Like, why do you exist? And maybe even share it with your customers. We're going to share our purpose again as a company. I'm not going to share it right now because I'm not sure that our CEO has shared it out there, but we've shared it with our employees. And I think it's important that we share it publicly as well. So that'll be coming. But I think, purpose, having a purpose without execution is really worthless. But executing without purpose is just a job. And but when you combine the two together, when you combine the purpose with the execution, I think that's really magical. That will really inspire. That's what inspires me, to do some of the difficult things that I need to do in my job every day, because I deeply believe in what our company stands for and what our purpose is. So you have the grit. I know that you do. I would, in difficult times and in good times, really look to the company purpose and use that to inspire you to move forward.
That's really great, Myron. Really appreciate it. Now, we understand that you have a hard exit here in about 4 minutes, and we 100% want to respect that. So, I know that the audience, so many positive comments in the chat window and in our Facebook Live. Any sort of final thoughts about this? I mean, what you did here today, we're grateful because it takes courage. Well, and I think it's the right kind of courage, the courage to be vulnerable, but also to continue to lean in and show that grit. And so, any final thoughts for folks just as we wrap this up here today?
I've been in this business now 29 years, maybe 30. So I'm dating myself when I say that. But I've seen our business community evolve over my career, and I am sincerely impressed with not only the grit, but the knowledge, the expertise that our business community has. We are so much better than we were years ago as a business community. And I think that's really important for our business community to recognize during these really difficult times is, you do a lot of great work. The management of our companies throughout the province is so much better and really recognized, not only in the banking world, but right throughout. So congratulations and recognize that. I think that's important. I will tell you that if you want some information on recovery, and I posted our recovery workbook, COVID-19, Moving Business Forward in Times of Crisis. I posted it to my Twitter handle, Myron Feser at FeserM. If you're interested in taking a look at it, access that. Thanks for all that you guys do every day, throughout the province. We are certainly proud of our business community, and anything that we can do to support, we're happy to do it. And if you found anything inspiring or useful in what I said today, I'm really glad to be here today. So Abe and Connie, thanks for the time.
We are so honored, Myron. You've just really touched our hearts today, and you've shown us what leadership and integrity and honesty and vulnerability look like. You've modeled that for us today. You've moved my heart. You've given me hope for our companies, and I just there's just thunderous applause in the chat. I think people are just so tired of the same old and business as usual, and so we're just thrilled. And thanks for mentioning the recovery workbook as well. And we just want to say thanks as you have to head off, and we hope to keep in touch with you.
Very good. Thank you again. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
And Myron, oh, sorry, I was just going to say, again, just let us know where can we find that recovery workbook, just
Sure.
again, just to repeat it.
Yeah, it's on my Twitter. Abe, Connie, I will send it to you as well, but Myron Feser at FeserM is my Twitter handle. If you want to just grab it from there, or I can send it out as well.
Yeah, we'll make sure we send it out in the replay of this. So thanks so much, Myron. We know you got to go, and thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.